Namaskar, this is Akhilesh Bhargava. Welcome to Tit-Bits on Business and Finance with me. We are at yet another year end and it is time to look forward. Before we look forward, we certainly need to look backwards. And for that, we need to review 2020 as it was. Any forecasting, any estimation for the coming year for 2021 would not be correct and complete unless a unbiased, impartial review of 2020 has been done. When we do such a review, it is time to accept the reality as it was. It is time to avoid any kind of a fake positive narrative by ignoring the ground reality. As we said, it needs to be unbiased. It cannot ignore the ground reality as it was. Trying to sound positive by ignoring the ground reality only builds illusions, and such illusions tend to aggravate economic crisis. And a crisis is what we are in at the moment. To us, the year 2020 was a year of illusions. It was a year when the government and governance failed to deliver. Things did not turn out as were expected, as were promised. And to us, COVID had very little to do with this failure of delivery of the promise. If you look at the year 2020, it started with a slowing economy, an economy which was slowing down quarter after quarter. And what was a slow economy in the beginning ended as a contracted, shrunk, diminished, and an economy in a recession by the end of it. 2020 is thus ending with more economic challenges on hand than they were at the beginning of the year. This was a year when politics prevailed, and that has been so in the past many years also. Politics prevailed over economics, even though a grave economic crisis had hit the country. And because of that, illusions got created. Illusions of grand announcements with very little delivery at the ground level. Reforms and initiatives thus failed to take off. And what were those illusions that deluded us in the year 2020? Let's have a look at it. The first grand illusion of 2020 to us was the fiscal stimulus. To us, it is a stimulus that never was. When the economy was put in a lockdown mode, when it started shrinking, you needed the government to spend in order to create demand, to kickstart the economy. After all, it was slowing down, it was shrinking. The government made a grand announcement and it announced in the inception a fiscal stimulus package of over 20 lakh crores. And then it made further subsequent announcements such that, according to the government, the fiscal stimulus was to the tune of about 28-29 lakh crores. The reality of the matter is that the real stimulus was only about 4 lakh crores, and that also has not been fully spent. When we talk about a fiscal stimulus, we talk about additional spending by the government. We do not talk about the existing budgeted spending, the spending that anyway had to take place. We don't talk about it. What the government did was only about 4 lakh crores was the additional spending being done. The rest of it was existing budgeted ongoing spending, which was repackaged and put forward as some kind of a fiscal stimulus. That was not additional spending. That was not additional money put in by the government. What was needed by the economy was money, finances being directly given by the government to those sectors that needed it in order to kickstart and stimulate economy, in order to stimulate the demand in the economy. That did not take place. So the first illusion was the size of the fiscal stimulus. The fiscal stimulus, as claimed by the government, was over 10% of the economy's size. In fact, about almost 14%. In reality, just about 2% of the GDP is what the government spent. And as we said, it has not yet been fully spent. All that the government did was existing budgeted expenditures were repackaged and put forward, and no additional spending came forward. And that is why demand in the economy has not got kick-started. If the fiscal stimulus was truly to the extent of 28 lakh crores as the government claims, it would be a different scene today. Demand would have been thriving by now and we would not see a continued contraction of the economy. So the first illusion of 2020, a fiscal stimulus that never was. The second illusion, green shoots of revival. It has been since July that the government has been claiming that it has been seeing green shoots of revival. The finance minister keeps saying it all the time. So do the finance ministry babus and babus of other ministries. The fact of the matter is that in the first quarter of this financial year, the economy was in a complete lockdown. Till June, the economy contracted officially by 23.9%, even though according to us, the contraction was much more. And for the simple reason, it ignored the contraction that took place in the informal economy, which is a big part of the Indian economy. Nevertheless, till June, we were in a lockdown situation. Thereafter, growth started limping back. It is only because of the lockdown that took place, the pent up demand because of the lockdown, and because of the festival demand, the Diwali season, that in the months of October and November, we saw some demand picking up. But then it was like a one time phenomena. After the pent up demand was met, after the Diwali season demand was met, we came back to a slowing economy, which is what it is in the month of December again. Thus, we have not really seen any green shoots of revival as the government claims. A green shoot of revival comes with a sense of sustainability and durability. Just because in one month you see some kind of a demand upsurge doesn't mean that the green shoots have appeared. Thus, the second illusion of 2020 has been green shoots of revival. The government keeps claiming them, but the reality is there were no green shoots of revival so far. We would call them green shoots of revival only if, for at least 2 quarters, month after month, demand remains strong, it keeps growing. That's just not happened. We saw some demand upsurging in the month of October and November, mid November. After that, it's back to a slump time. And thus, the second illusion, green shoots of revival, not there in the year 2020. Sadly, the government has been seeing them since July. The third one, tax simplification. The government keeps talking of reforms. The government speaks that it has been simplifying tax laws. And in this simplification, one of its main claims has been faceless appeals and faceless assessments. The fact of the matter is that these faceless appeals and assessments have only created more chaos and more confusion, not just for the taxman, but for the taxpayer also. There has been no simplification really that took place, and there has been no improvement in the compliances that a taxpayer has to undergo. In fact, these sudden announcements by the government without any preparation of the tax department has only seeded more confusion, more compliance, more chaos, and that doesn't amount to any simplification. The fact of the matter is that with the government challenging the Vodafone arbitration order in an appeal court in Singapore, the attitude of the government is very clear. Even though retro tax has been accepted as a blunder by the government, it still prefers to go into appeals, and that just shows that there is no intention to simplify the situation or make it easier for the taxpayer. So the third illusion, tax simplifications, it never really was. The next illusion of 2020 has been India's banking sector. 2020 started with India's banking sector and financial sector being crisis ridden, being shaky and weak. And the year is also ending with the sector being in such a situation. We witnessed the Yes Bank failure and its bailout. We witnessed the Lakshmi Vilas Bank failure and its bailout. We witnessed the PMC crisis remaining unresolved, and so has been the case of DHFL. And we are apprehensive that some other such crisis in the banking and financial sector will certainly erupt. The government's initiatives have truly failed to strengthen the sector as was expected. And what were the initiatives of the government? The flagship initiatives of the government were the PCA regime, under which sick, bankrupt public sector banks were nursed back to health. We have not seen them yield any tangible results at the ground level. The other initiative was bank mergers. The government had claimed that by merging public sector banks, there would be a churn out in the sector and the sector will become stronger. Nothing like this has taken place. And what better proof of this than the government being compelled to recapitalize public sector banks year after year, including in the year 2020. In the last 3 years alone, the government has pumped in over 3 lakh crores of precious public money into bankrupt public sector banks in order to ensure that they survive, in order to see that they do not collapse. That itself is proof that the banking sector crisis remains and reforms have not succeeded. The next illusion to us has been interest rate cuts. Interest rate cuts were effected successively in order to ensure that money becomes cheap. The purpose was to incentivize borrowers to borrow money and invest it, but nothing like that has taken place. Fresh investments in the country continue to languish. there has been no improvement. In fact, in some sectors like the MSME sector, there has been a dip in the growth rate of lending. There are few takers for loans and there are not many givers of the loans. Both of them remain apprehensive, and therefore interest rate cuts remains an initiative on paper which has not yielded tangible results. To us, it remains an illusion. The next one, of course, is India trying to become an alternate to China. The world is tired of China. The world is trying to look at some alternate to China in order to build alternate manufacturing bases. China Plus has become the main motto of most multinational companies. And India, with its large geography, with its demography and democracy, would be an ideal candidate. But because of its poor ease of doing business, because of its oppressive regulatory and compliance regime, it has not been able to do that. Ahead of us in the game are the likes of Vietnam, Bangladesh, Indonesia, and even Mexico. Thailand is also ahead of us, but India is a poor runner in this. In order to gain some traction, the government has come out with the PLI scheme. The PLI scheme is giving financial incentives to companies to come and set up manufacturing bases in India. But then that's not the real way to do it. The real way is to improve the investment climate in the country, and that's not taken place. Further, confidence and demand and jobs and investments in 2020 remain elusive. Confidence of the consumer, confidence of the producer remain at all-time lows. Demand did not take off. Joblessness remained and investments did not take off. All these also to us have remained an elusive factor for the country. The next point that we note is monetary policy. The Reserve Bank did some heavy lifting and it has been coming up with monetary policy initiatives. But these monetary policy initiatives have not had matching support with fiscal policy initiatives by the government. And because of that, the Reserve Bank's monetary policy initiatives have failed to yield the potential result, the potential fruits that it can result. To us, that also remained an illusion and did not deliver results at the ground level. So the year 2020, according to us, has been a year of grand promises and grand illusions, and a huge gap between promise and performance on the part of the government. But this era of these kind of grand promises, failed promises, to us began sometime in the year 2014 when Mr. Narendra Modi promised that Achhe Din will come back. They haven't come back. We are waiting. We are waiting and we are hoping that the year 2021 turns out to be better. It turns out to be a year where the gap between promise and performance is much lesser, such that there's a substantial improvement in the state of the Indian economy. That's something we would look forward as far as 2021 is concerned. We wish you a wonderful, happy and prosperous 2021. And we do hope that our fruitful relationship of HW News continues and grows further.
Hello everyone. HW News English is 2 years old now. When we started this venture, we promised ourselves one thing, that news should remain free. Because right to know is the right of every Indian. But to keep news free for everyone, we need support from some of you. And thus we have rolled out membership on our YouTube channel HW News English. But mind you, the membership is completely voluntary. The programs that we were doing earlier, that we are doing now, will continue to remain free. First level is a basic level. Here, you can be our supporter by paying Rs 199 per month. This membership gives you certain perks and benefits. The perks include unique badges in front of your name, a live show from Mr. Sujit Nair and from Mr. Akhilesh Bhargava per month for our members. You can also vote in some exclusive members-only polls. Now the second level is Super Supporter. Here you can be our Super Supporter by paying Rs 3,999 per month. This membership will include every perk that comes with basic level. Additionally, our Super Supporters can be a part of a WhatsApp group where we can have discussions and suggestions on various topics. The second perk includes a gift pack with our merchandise. And the third perk is a Google Meet with Mr. Sujit Nair, where you can join the meet and ask your questions to Mr. Nair face to face. Lastly, if you like, we would give a shout out to our super supporters in our programs. So, hope to see you soon with our badges.